Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through the noise, pulling out the core ideas from the sources you care about so you can get informed quickly and get back to your day.
Today, we're tackling something pretty big, that inner critic. And, the shame that often fuels it.
Right. Our source is Nick Salupo's book, Healing Your Inner Critic, 5 Keys to Transforming Shame and Experiencing Inner Freedom.
Yeah, it's a really interesting take.
We're aiming to pull out the most important ideas, give you some practical keys, actionable stuff for understanding and maybe shifting that self-criticism.
So let's get into it.
Okay, so this book, it really reframes how we think about that voice, doesn't it?
Totally. Instead of just trying to shut the critic up, Slupo says, look, it's a signal. It's pointing to something deeper.
Which is shame.
Exactly. Shame.
And his definition really stuck with me. It's not just like guilt about doing something wrong. It's this feeling deep down.
Yeah, like something is inherently wrong with me.
Yes. At my core, I am not okay. That kind of fundamental inadequacy.
And he lists ways this shows up, right? Like the constant comparing yourself to others.
Oh, yeah. Or being terrified of trying new things unless you know you'll nail it.
Mm-hmm. Or just beating yourself up mentally for tiny mistakes. We've all been there.
Definitely. Feeling inferior, avoiding things you actually want, feeling like you're fundamentally different
Needing to please everyone, not standing up for yourself.
is a long list.
But what's key is realizing these aren't just random quirks. Salupo ties them back to that core not okay feeling. They're like indicators.
Dashboard lights for shame.
That's a good way to put it. And he traces the roots back, often to childhood, specifically how our emotions were handled.
Right. Those messages we might have heard. Like, big boys don't cry or stop crying, it's not that bad.
Things that sound maybe helpful on the surface.
Maybe. But Saloop suggests they often come from the adult's discomfort. They can't handle the kid's big feelings.
Yeah, it's not necessarily about the feeling being wrong, just that the adult finds it inconvenient or uncomfortable.
And the child internalizes that. They don't have the context.
Nope. They just get the message, my feeling is bad, so I must be bad for feeling it.
And that just sticks. It becomes this belief that feels totally natural, like it was always there.
Even though it was learned, it becomes this sort of invisible filter we see everything through.
And it can be hard to even spot, right? Especially if your parents seem, generally kind. There's guilt there.
For sure, guilt about thinking anything negative about your upbringing.
But what's really empowering about Salupo's approach is it's not about blame.
No, it's an inside job, as he calls it. You don't need an apology.
The key is learning to be that loving parent to yourself, accepting your feelings now without judgment.
That feels possible. That
Yeah.
feels like something you can actually do.
So, okay, where does the actual inner critic come from then, that voice?
Right. This is crucial. Slupo says the critic isn't the root problem. It's a symptom.
A symptom of the shame. He uses that great analogy.
The flat tire. Yeah, the nagging critic is the flat tire. But the real problem, the thing that caused the flat,
Is the hole in the inner tube.
mm.
That's the shame.
It's such a clear picture because just pumping air in the tire, just trying to silence the critic, it won't last if the hole's still there.
Right. So those critical thoughts, they aren't genetic. They grow because we internalize that who I am isn't okay message.
Shame is the fuel. The thoughts are like the toxic fumes.
Fuel and fumes. I like that.
And as our brains develop, that underlying feeling of being wrong gets translated into conscious thoughts. I'm stupid. I'm not good enough.
And they feel so real, so natural because they spring from that shame that's already there. It's sneaky.
Very. And he also connects this to things like depression and anxiety. He suggests they can be like a wake-up call.
A sign that there's underlying shame that needs attention.
Exactly. And healing that shame might actually resolve the depression or anxiety too. What do you think about that link?
It really tracks for me. I mean, if your baseline is feeling flawed, it's bound to color everything else, your mood, your outlook.
Right. And the goal isn't to stop evaluating yourself entirely. That's healthy.
It's about transforming that harsh, punitive critic.
Into more of a healthy inner evaluator, one that helps you grow without tearing you down.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Mm.
Key number 1 he offers is about mindset. Ditching the fixed mindset, adopting a growth mindset. This draws on Carol Dweck's work, yeah.
Absolutely. Dweck's research is foundational here. The growth mindset sees experiences, even failures, as chances to learn. It's about the process.
Not just the outcome. It's not good or bad. It's just, where am I now and how can I improve?
Precisely. Whereas the fixed mindset, that's the belief that your abilities are just set. You're either good at something or you're not. End of story.
He tells that story about trying BMX tricks as a kid.
Oh, yeah. Getting so mad he couldn't land a trick that he chucked his bike through the basement window.
Classic fixed mindset reaction.
Yeah.
Total frustration leading to self-criticism and, well, property damage.
It shows perfectly how that mindset breeds anger and blame. If you think you should be good, any struggle feels like proof that you're just not.
Yeah, that black and white thinking, it stops you from trying things, whether it's learning an instrument or even just navigating a tricky conversation.
And the beauty of shifting to a growth mindset, like Salupo says, is it just takes the pressure off.
Right. It's okay to not be perfect now because you believe you can learn and get better. Mistakes aren't failures, they're data.
It totally softens that inner critic. It reframes the whole experience from proving yourself to just learning.
Okay, key number 2. This one's called untangling thoughts and feelings. Sounds simple, but maybe it's not.
It's surprisingly powerful. The core idea is just recognizing the difference. Thoughts are the words, the stories in your head.
And feelings are the physical sensations in your body, the emotion itself.
Yes, and the problem is we blend them. We say things like,
I feel like a failure. He uses that example.
right, but failure isn't a feeling, it's a judgment, a thought.
So what's the actual feeling underneath?
Could be sadness, disappointment, maybe shame itself. But you need to identify that physical feeling, the fuel source, to deal with it.
Okay, so how do you untangle them? He has a method, right?
The 4-step detangler.
Yeah.
First, just notice the thought. What are the words?
Step 1, what's the thought? Okay.
Step 2, what's the feeling under the thought? In your body. Name it. Shame, sadness, anger, fear.
Got it. Step 3.
Put them together. State it clearly. I'm thinking the thought and I'm feeling the feeling.
Okay, like I'm thinking I'm a failure and I'm feeling shame.
Exactly. And step 4, which we'll get to more in a bit, is discharging that feeling from your body, actually releasing it.
He shares a personal story about this, doesn't he? Feeling like his anxiety would never end.
Yeah. The thought was, this anxiety will last forever. But when he looked underneath, the feeling was fear.
And realizing it was fear was the key.
It changed how he could address it. Just separating the thought from the raw feeling breaks that loop, you know?
Yeah.
Creates space.
It stops that automatic negative spiral. Okay, that makes sense. Key number 3 then. Don't believe self-critical thoughts.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Tell me about it. But yeah, he challenges why we automatically buy into the negative stuff.
But dismiss compliments so easily. It's a weird bias we have when shame is running the show.
He reminds us again, shame, the critic, it's not innate, it's learned, often before we can even think rationally.
So those thoughts aren't necessarily reflecting current reality, they're echoes.
Old programming.
Exactly. And it's the feeling of shame attached to them that makes them feel so true, so heavy.
But that original self, before the shame, the curious, playful kid, it's still in there somewhere.
It is. And Salupa suggests reframing those critical thoughts. Don't call them my thoughts, call them residual thoughts.
Residual thoughts, leftovers from the past.
Yeah. He says just relabeling them can cut their power by like 50%.
Oh, that's interesting. He gives some very practical examples like learning to change his car oil.
Right. Realizing that belief, I'm bad at mechanical stuff, was just wrong. He could learn it.
Or trying to fix the fuel pump sensor and battling those you can't do this thoughts.
Or even the book cover example. Sometimes things don't work out, but it doesn't mean the critic was right about your fundamental worth. Maybe it just wasn't the right task or the right time.
It reminds me of that quote he included from Scott Peck's Neighbor.
Oh, yes, you can. You just don't take the time to learn how.
Exactly. So often it's the critic, the shame holding us back, not actual inability.
So step 1 is not automatically believing the thought. That's half the battle.
And the other half.
That leads us to key number 4, discharging shame from the body. This is where it gets really physical.
Right. He circles back to how shame develops. Upsetting feeling gets invalidated. We hold it back, reinforces something's wrong with me.
And all that holding back creates this backlog of unprocessed emotion, energy that's stuck in the body.
He talks about his own depression, using track and field and medication as coping, but not really healing.
Until he started actually feeling and expressing the stored stuff. The anger, the grief.
He acknowledges it can seem scary to feel those things.
Definitely. But he says the fear of feeling it is usually way worse than the actual experience of release.
And afterward, relief, like putting down a massive backpack you didn't even realize you were carrying.
Yeah. And doing this consistently can actually shift your whole baseline mood, make it more positive, more stable.
But how do you do it safely? He stresses finding a safe space.
Crucial. Like therapy, specific workshops like Hero's Journey, or maybe with a really trusted friend. Somewhere you can let go fully.
He pushes back against studies linking anger expression to aggression, saying they miss the point.
Yeah, they often don't guide people to feel the pure energy without the story, or they focus just on physical exertion, not the emotional feeling.
You quote some doctors, too, about unprocessed emotions affecting organs.
And the fundamental need to express pain. It's not just psychological, it's physiological.
So practical techniques. For anger, he suggests things like
Hitting a pillow or bed with a tennis racket, using a pool noodle, shaking your arms and hands really hard, even just gentle pounding.
the key being.
Feeling the raw energy, not analyzing, not judging, just letting the sensation move through you. It's a sensate thing.
And for grief.
Allowing the natural physical stuff, the sobbing, the shaking, not trying to stop it.
He mentions Peter Levine's work on trauma and how shaking is the nervous system releasing things.
Exactly. Let the body do what it needs to do. And afterward, rest. Let it integrate.
So those bad moods might just be stored emotions bubbling up.
That's the idea. Release them and you weaken shame's grip. You make space for more self-encouragement.
Okay, wow. That's a big one. Which brings us to the fifth and final key. Have fun trying new things. This feels lighter.
It does. But it's deeply connected. Shame stops us from trying stuff because we're afraid of failing, looking silly, being seen as inadequate.
That false self idea he mentions from John Eldridge, needing to maintain an image.
Shame fuels that need. It wants to avoid any exposure of perceived weakness.
But Salupo talks about his own shift, learning to enjoy games and new skills just for the fun of it. Not because he has to be good at them.
Right, like playing Blocus Trigon or Bananagrams. The outcome doesn't really matter, but shame can steal the joy even from those simple things.
It's about letting go of needing approval based on performance.
And just allowing yourself to enjoy the process, the learning, maybe even being a bit rubbish at something but laughing about it.
So find things you've always wanted to try. Silly dancing, making up rhymes.
Playing with a bouncy ball. Anything that taps into that playful side.
It's not that we lose the ability to have fun as adults.
It's that shame puts this pressure on us to always be achieving, performing. He says be a human being, not just a human doing.
I love that. Be a human being. Okay, so that brings us to the wrap-up. His core message. Don't be ashamed of being ashamed.
Yeah, that double arrow idea. Feeling bad about feeling bad. It's extra unnecessary suffering.
Shame is uncomfortable enough without adding another layer of judgment on top.
He shares that story from Michael Mervosh on the ropes course. Feeling the shame, but not letting it stop him.
Right. And the wanting to shout something silly from a boulder, feeling embarrassed, but doing it anyway. Realizing you can feel embarrassed and still act.
It's acknowledging, okay, shame maybe helped me fit in as a kid, avoid trouble, but now it often just holds me back.
So feel the feeling, but don't let it dictate your choices necessarily.
Exactly. It's okay to feel embarrassed and still go for what you want.
Makes sense. And then his one last thing is a gentle nudge about reviews for the book.
Yeah, just suggesting that if the book helped, leaving even a short review can help others find it too. A nice pay-it-forward idea.
So let's quickly recap those 5 keys from Nick Salupo.
Okay. 1, adopt a growth mindset. 2, untangle thoughts and feelings.
3, don't automatically believe self-critical thoughts. 4, discharge shame from the body.
And 5, have fun trying new things.
Understanding where shame and the critic come from, that's powerful. It gives you a way forward.
Absolutely. So maybe think about which of those keys really hit home for you. Is there one small thing you could try this week?
Yeah, just one small step.
Which leads us to our final thought for you to ponder. Now that you have this lens, this understanding of shame as the fuel source, what's one small, maybe even slightly silly fun thing you could do this week? Just because. No outcome needed, just for enjoyment.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We hope it gave you some valuable insights.
Yeah. Hope it was helpful. Until next time.